Welcome to my podcast, The Government Mechanic. I am your host, Dr. Lynn Sandra Khan, and I am the Government Mechanic. In this episode, I will summarize the key issues that we raised around food and farming in episodes 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the first lesson from those episodes is that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, has consistently over the decades written horrible policies that had done real damage to family owned farms, ranches, and fisheries, and in the process, really damaged rural communities or fishing communities or communities out in the mountains. The USDA policies have done real damage. And the numbers prove the point. In the 1970s, we had about 770,000 dairy farms. In 2024, we had 36,184. The USDA sets the price of milk below what it costs the dairy farmer to produce that milk. So, of course, tens of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of farms have gone bankrupt in the last 50 years. And this change has fundamentally altered the nature of our heartland, our relationship between rural and urban America, our relationship with our food supply. When Abraham Lincoln created the Department of Agriculture in 1862, he called it the People's Department, and he wanted it to support farmers and farming communities. We have gone so far away from that. We all eat. We have to work together to save our family, farms, ranches, and fisheries. Let's roll the first two clips. We're going to hear from dairy farmer Brenda Cochran. Roll the clip.
Dangerous. It's a publication from the government to give people the perception that everything is hunky dory and fine, and it's not. My position is that if you harm the farmers, it's inevitable you will harm consumers. And the USDA has insulated itself away from the people. They don't talk to us farmers, they don't talk to consumers. They don't talk to the businesses on rural main streets that have been put out of business because those of us farming, ranching, cannot circulate any viable income into that community.
So farmers are left out of the policy decisions made about farming. And they're really not very happy about it. And we as consumers shouldn't be happy either because those policies end up favoring big corporations. And there are fewer and fewer corporations that are running our food supply system. Let's listen to the next clip.
What we're living is the implementation by the ag committees through farm bills administered by the USDA to get rid of the very people that President Lincoln intended to help by forming the USDA.
I'm not a farmer, don't come from a farming background, not in the last few generations anyway. But I do appreciate good food, and I really want to understand what these issues are. So I have tried to figure out how to frame it in a way that non-farmers can understand what's happening. Play the next clip. And I think what consumers and everyone who eats food, that would be everyone, doesn't quite understand is that farmers cannot price their milk. It's the government that sets the price of fluid milk. And they set the price below what it costs the small dairy farmer to produce that milk. So what Brenda has said about that, if that's the policy, that they're setting a price for milk that won't cover the farmer's costs, then inherently the policies are to drive family farmers bankrupt. And those policies work because there are so few farmers, fishers, ranchers, family owned food producers left in this country. And what happens is that the market is concentrated and concentrated among very, very few really big corporations. Let's play the next clip. It's unbelievable to me how much money is actually through this check off, how much money is taken out of the farmers or ranchers' check before they even get it.
It
I
is.
mean,
It's
these are
it,
deductions that hurt family farmers and ranchers.
they do. Every farmer has to pay $1 a cow a head. There's also, if you have dairy cows, you pay the $1 a cow when you sell it, and on the milk, and then you pay for pork. Like that's 40 or 50 cents a hog. Poultry has no check off, and their numbers have skyrocketed over the last 30, 40 years in basically consumption and demand. And then all of those that have a check off, they have gone downhill. So I think that says the initial thought of marketing being done by the government and these commodities was a good idea is really been proven to be a terrible idea. And there's the evidence because of poultry versus those that have checkoffs that, the proof is right there.
Well, there is some good news. There are nonprofits that are really attuned to our food supply system, whether that's on the land or in the water. And there are similarities of issues across farming, ranching, and fishing. These nonprofits are figuring out how to get together, how to leverage their knowledge and their capacity to try to change legislation. Play the last clip.
Agency level that we also see corporations dominating the system. So then we have to get involved in what's called administrative law because that's where they have the money and the power to change. We don't often show up in the administrative law level because it takes a lot of effort to do. So how do we show up in all of those places? That's a little bit of where the idea of building alliances and coalitions comes into play. How do we tap into each other's strength to fill
Mm.
the seats at the various tables so that we can speak for each other with permission from each other, but we don't all have to be there at the same time because that's where capacity gets pushed.
So the nonprofits are learning how to both lobby and how to leverage their abilities, knowledge, and capacity. We asked each of the people that we interviewed in those 5 episodes, what is their advice? What are the solutions for this issue? What would they tell consumers? And the key solutions kind of fell into several categories. The first is don't take food for granted. Be aware, read labels, be knowledgeable about what's grown in your area, buy local. Ask questions when you go into a grocery store. What of these vegetables and fruits are grown around here? What's local? Is there a local butcher? What is produced locally and buy that? Be aware, read the labels. Find out what's going on in the schools in your district. Have they figured out how to serve really healthy food? Be policy aware. Understand the policies that are impacting food in your specific locations. And I think the two more points. One is make your voice count. Know who your representatives are in your state, in your county, in Washington, D.C. Go see them in person. Call the White House, area code 202-224-3121. Let them know what you think. Send emails. The last part of what are the solutions that need to be put in place is about changing the legislation, changing policies, reinstituting parity laws, or at least encouraging, seeking farmers, ranchers, fishers to come to and voice their opinions at legislative hearings. Well, there's lots of stories in those 5 episodes, so I invite you to my podcast and YouTube channel, The Government Mechanic, to check them out. They're wonderful stories. And please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.